I make many videos for parents. I make some for teachers, some for students. This is for school administrators in particular. Please heed this. Until Connecticut gives parents statewide school choice, which would be great, then social emotional learning, SEL, which Connecticut is attempting to do on a statewide basis, SEL is best done outside the school. Ditto climate change and CRT, but since SEL is pervasive, since it's codified in Connecticut statutes now, let us focus on it. Social, emotional, and learning are three nice words for which we'd like all our students to thrive. But SEL has become this catchphrase for teaching non-traditional concepts and against many parents' wishes. In the meantime, parents get pitted against teachers, pitted against school boards, and even parents get pitted against one another. Students, they're caught in this philosophical crossfire. Their education can't be improved by it. Administrators, you're put upon for lengthy studies. Often you're compelled to use flimsy research. I've heard this in hearings. Research that would superficially bolster your presentations. I have a solution to reducing every one of these negatives. Just teach what we know. It's that simple. That should be the mission of schools in the first place. Look, at its best, social emotional learning is to understand where a student is coming from. And without jeopardizing other kids' educations, play to it. Schools operate beautifully. Without that individualized understanding of backgrounds and instead melding kids into what they should learn, classroom by classroom by classroom. It's worked for decades. It doesn't need to be tinkered with. Indeed, the tinkering is what causes many students to actually feel worse about attending school, worse about who their classmates are or who their teachers are or what the administrators above are trying to do to them. Kids are distressed in school in part because issues of fit are being foisted on them by the school itself. Take SEL out of the agenda and students become in school to learn. Teach facts, teach skills. That removes the schools from controversies that you can't win. There's a very good model for this removal. It's arguably for something even more important, human creation. Our public schools have deftly stayed away from issues of who or what created us, whether the creator still has a purpose for humans. These topics are rightly for families and churches to discuss, and it works well. Connecticut schools, they have children with exceptionally diverse backgrounds, and despite this, because of this long-standing agreement to take the issue out of school, rarely is a student socially uncomfortable, rarely is clashing theories foisted upon a student. So, we don't need a constitutional amendment to wisely cordon off subjects that do little good and are best done in other places. Look, what other places and times? School, work, community. You have, in a given year, over 6,000 hours of waking time. I'm according 8 hours of sleep time, which most teenagers don't get. All right, so at most, 1,500 of those hours are spent on a school campus. I'm including extracurriculars. I'm saying 9 hours a day for 180 days. 4,500 hours remain for a student to imbibe all these social and emotional things that can help a student thrive. You don't need to add to it in school. Adding civics is noble, but it's not necessary. And now that civics is fraught with irrepressible controversies, it's just not efficacious and it's not nice to foist civics on children this way. Now, conservatives are going to lament this, and I am one of them. They're going to say, you're giving up on the cultural fight. In public schools, yes, I am. It's a doleful reply. I think civics could have had a good place in schools, but we lost. Okay? For 20 years, we conservatives haven't been monitoring who and what is being taught in the schools. Now, we shouldn't let kids be casualties in these rearguard skirmishes. So, there's the hopeful reply. To conservatives, children and their parents now have more choices in schooling than at any time in our lives. It's beautiful. And the fight that conservatives can and should stay ahead of is for even wider choice in schools, in public schools. Vouchers help that choice. Look how choice in schools just might make us all friends and harmonize things for our kids. Choice in schools takes every incendiary topic off the table, okay? Every one of them is now up to parents to decide which school with established policies is most receptive. Boys competing in leagues reserved for girls, whether to have SEL in the first place, whether males can be allowed in females' locker rooms, use of preferred pronouns, use of Native American mascots, CRT, back to basics, civics, sex ed, and of late, how much do we want to use armed security to protect our kids? All of these are worthy for parents to choose from and not be dictated to. Until you have that choice in schools, why don't we remove some of these topics, maybe all of them, starting with SEL. I'm Mark Stewart.